Welcome to the Porsche Club Insider, your one stop for all things Porsche and PCA. Here's your host, Vu and the Insider crew.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 79. We are at PCA's national headquarters. Around the table, we have Manny Albin. We don't have Damon. He's on a trip, I believe, to visit with some folks at PAG for something special we don't know yet. Robert Forsyth is at the controls, and we have a special guest today. Luckily, he's local to PCA's national headquarters. He's been featured in Road and Track, Sports Car International, our favorite Porsche factory magazine, the Christophorus, as well as worked on several Porsche posters. Many of you might have his artwork hanging in your house. And Manny, I'll let you do the official introduction.
I think you just did. Now, Dennis is actually a resident of Maryland, and we see each other at Cars and Coffee. So when I asked him if he was doing the Rennsport 7, he said yes. I'm like, well, we got to have you on the show because it's obviously we're getting closer and closer to Rennsport, and just by the phone calls that come into his office now. In fact, I was working on a quick FAQ for member services because they're not finding all the answers on the Porsche website, and in particular where PCA is going to be. So
it's pretty typical of PCA members. We're about a month away, and a good number of people are now deciding to go to Rennsport 7 and looking for final details.
Yeah, we had a meeting yesterday about parade laps, the logistics, and I reminded Laguna that our members will be there exactly at the time we tell them to be, and the sun hasn't risen yet at 6:30 by that date in September. So I said any signage without lighting is useless.
Right.
So keep in mind, I said it's going to be dark when everyone shows up, and they will show up in the dark.
You're going to need those lit batons to direct traffic.
And people to hold them.
All right, so Dennis, welcome, and we'll start with just kind of a catch-up of what we did over the past couple of days. Feel free to chime in. It has been a scorcher here in Maryland, so I don't know that many of us have done things outside other than early in the day, like Cars and Coffee.
Oh, I hear it came in on Monday, or actually, I guess Sunday. Either way, Cars and Coffee we did it. Dennis was there on. It was very nice weather.
Yeah.
But then I think Sunday the heat came in, and maybe it is September, so
yeah. Hopefully
the open house will be dry.
Yeah, I've been watching the forecast, so by the time you listen to this, hopefully the open house has already happened. But there's a 50% chance of rain. We've still got a couple of days out. Hopefully that'll change, but we've been cleaning up as we do annually to welcome.
If it wasn't for open houses and visits from the executive council, we would never clean up.
Exactly. Not only are we cleaning up, but we're throwing a fresh coat of paint on a number of things. Yesterday, I matched. I don't know, Robert, if you can show our view here inside the office, but I have a little touch-up of Club Blau.
It looks like nail polish.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I took it over to our local Home Depot, and they actually scanned the Club Blau and.
So that means that instead of buying $70 a gallon Porsche paint, we can go to Home Depot and just give them a toy car of a speed yellow.
Oh no, we still bought the Porsche backdrop paint. I think
I'm talking about me.
So Robert just threw up there. We bought the backdrop paint that was recently released by Porsche. It comes in 4 colors, and to my surprise, it also comes with a little prize. They're 1-gallon jugs. You can get them in Ruby Star, Irish Green, Riviera Blue, and Speed Yellow, and it also comes with a commemorative 75th anniversary keychain. So if you think about the paint at Home Depot, which is about $45, this is I think $75, but it comes with a commemorative keychain, so it all evens out, right?
Yeah, it's like buying a 19 Spider and saying, well, it comes with the watch, so it's worth $1 million. So I think that would be the only can of paint that I would intentionally make sure that I don't get any paint on the outside. Normally you don't care how much paint because you're not going to keep the can as a collector, but
I'm not gonna lie. I was thinking about that too. Is
I think we
pouring it out and not messing
I'm
up.
surprised you didn't put masking tape all over the can so we wouldn't get any paint on it.
So I've only painted the Club Blau and got that done yesterday. Today is the day where we'll actually use a backdrop paint. And Manny saw me kind of wandering in the lobby, figuring out where I was going to put paint. And he came up. I'm going to give him due credit here because when you, as an artist, where do you place paint, and it's make sure you do it correctly so it doesn't clash, right? And I'm sure you can understand that. He was like, why don't we just paint all the doors? And so we all got to kind of not choose, but
Well, a little bit logistics too, because this is on a Wednesday. The open house is Saturday, and he decides to become Martha Stewart and start painting that office with 72 hours to go.
Plenty of time.
In getting his enthusiasm to paint more narrowed down, that's what I thought the doors.
Just do the doors,
more realistic,
which is a great idea. For me, this past weekend, I just washed and vacuumed cars. I didn't do anything incredibly exciting. I did find out why there was a clunking noise in the back of my Fox Body Mustang, and it doesn't usually make a noise. And I found out even urethane bushings do degrade and come apart. And if you look at the photo there, that is my rear shock, where there used to be urethane bushings.
I bet you are they meant to last longer than rubber?
I would think so. They're harder.
That
but
doesn't necessarily mean that they're supposed to be for performance, right?
They are. So I have full urethane throughout my Mustang, and I've owned it for 30-some years, and I think those shocks are probably at least 25 years old. So it's time to replace them, and I ordered a new set of iBox shocks. So I was hoping to do that this past weekend, but time was not on my side.
And how many miles a year do you put on that car?
Less than
a gas tank worth.
Yeah, maybe. Well, it does burn up a lot of it burns up a lot of gas, so maybe
when the oil comes out, does it look brand new?
It does. It does. Even though I change it annually, the oil looks brand new. Yeah, probably a couple of 100 miles, if that. Yeah, it lives a pretty posh life now. So, anyways, let's get into why you're here, and thank you for joining us. And I feel like I've known you for such a long time. Like, I know you're kind of a celebrity, but we know you. Like, you're local to us, and you come to Cars and Coffee. You're like a regular person, but you've done such amazing stuff, and it goes back all the way to Rennsport reunion two at least for us. So, Manny, why don't you kick it off?
So, for those who are going to Rennsport, have been to Rennsport, I would say most people listening on here probably have one of Dennis's posters.
Absolutely.
In their collection. And if they went to Rennsport, they probably have it signed. And I know I have several Rennsport posters signed. I always tell people, when you get it signed this time, take a picture of the person who's signing it with their name. Because we actually get emails here asking me, do you know whose signature this is?
Yeah, and it's a scribble.
And some of them, you learn to recognize, and other ones you're trying to decipher, and it's like you said, a scribble. But yeah, his artwork has not just Rennsport, but your style is so unique, I guess, that I can pick out your artwork from a mile away.
Well, first of all, I'm very happy to be here to get the invitation, and I'm an autograph collector on my posters too, and when I look at them carefully, if you have something with 6 or 8 different drivers sign the same thing, and you can usually read about 4 of them for sure, and guess another 2. But there's always a couple you just cannot identify.
The nice ones will put their car number or something that I can trace it back to.
Yeah. Now you're a true local Marylander. I mean, your art goes back to the College of Art at Maryland?
Yeah, I'm born and bred. I grew up in Baltimore City. Moved out in the county by the time I was in high school, but went right back to the city for an art education at Maryland Institute.
And when did you or your family realize you had this talent? We had this young kid at Works Reunion Monterey. He was 9 years old. And he was sketching on the fly, and it was just amazing. Like, you thought his hand was like a printer lead that just could look and then just like, was that for you?
I don't know how good the stuff was, but No, I was drawing stuff. My father used to take me to work with him, and he sold farm tractors. And a little tiny kid and getting dragged along to these farms, and I used to come home and draw farms, barns and tractors. I don't really remember drawing any animals, but I remember drawing barns.
Okay. And I know that typically, man, when we catch up with Dennis, he's always quite dapper, right? He's got the cool hat on. He's got something. So fashion has always been a part of your life as well.
Well, when I went to Maryland Institute, I was a fashion major, and I wanted to be a fashion illustrator. But those were like different times because there was work for fashion illustration. There'd be fashion illustration in the newspaper every single night, and all the magazines and the fancy fashion magazines and all that. So I graduated from the fashion program, and I worked as a fashion illustrator doing men's clothes for about 3 years. But I got bored. I got bored. It was real retail, so seasonal stuff. And after it repeated through 3 years of the same seasons, I needed to go on and have more variety. So I went and got a job at an advertising agency as an art director.
So I read a little bit about most of us when we talk about our past and maybe in cars or in motorsports, we talk about our first car, but your first car actually wasn't a first car per se, because your first mode of transportation was two wheels.
Right. I loved motorcycles.
Yeah.
I remember going to a Cub Scout meeting. So however old you are when you go to a Cub Scout meeting, and I waved at this guy who went by on a BMW motorcycle.
Oh, nice.
And he waved back, and that was it.
That was the bug.
That's what I aspired to.
So what was that first motorcycle?
A little Honda.
Honda?
Yeah.
Was it a baby dream by any chance?
It was a Bentley, which is a 150 Dream. Yeah.
Sir, if you would like to ride a 150 Baby Dream, I have one in my garage that you could go for a ride in.
You're kidding.
Absolutely. I can make that happen. I have a 64 150 Baby Dream.
Wow.
That was your first bike?
Yeah.
How cool is that?
My father.
Now he'll never sell it. Now he's just
Now I'm just going to have you sign it. I'm going to have you sign it, take pictures with it.
White wall tires. Do you have white wall
I
tires?
wish I would like to put white wall tires on it, but the tires that are on it are good, so it's like,
Mine.
But I would like to get white wall tires for it.
Mine was I think a 61, so it
Okay.
was kind of early. I don't even know if there were Honda dealers around.
Yeah.
In 61.
You meet the nicest people on a Honda, is what they say.
So my father, I told my father I wanted a motorcycle, and he said, "Well, you can have it if you get a job." And then a couple weeks later, he just came home from work one day with his motorcycle in the back of his pickup
Really?
truck,
How
and
cool.
said that one of the close by people to the business, where he had his business, had this on their lawn, and I now owe him $250.
Wow.
And I should do something about that.
That's so cool. So when was the last time you rode a 150 Baby Dream?
Oh God.
That long.
First year of art school, so that was,
We're gonna
it
make
was
this happen. We're gonna put you on the
1960
Baby Dream, and you can take it for a ride.
1966.
So cool. And then when did all this passion transform into four wheels?
Well, I always was like attracted by little British sports cars. So I was going to art school and having problems carrying my art supplies and my, mainly your drawing board on a motorcycle. So it was time to get a car. So we went shopping, me and my father, and bought an MGA.
Okay.
And that was my first car, my first sports car. Well, my first.
Did you learn how to work on cars?
Yeah, well,
owning an MGA.
I worked on the motorcycle.
Yeah.
I was never afraid to take things apart.
Nice.
Hopefully, get them back together. And then my father having this farm tractor business, he had a big shop with all these mechanics working and all these tools. So I took right to that. My father was real mechanical too.
And then when did automotive art come into the picture?
Well, I mean, even in high school, I just filled my notebooks with little car drawings.
Yeah.
Like inventing little sports cars and stuff like that. And I still have.
You still have them?
I still have those pages. I didn't keep any of the pages from any of the schoolwork, but I do. I have those.
Very cool. Yeah. So maybe we'll start with how did you get involved with was Rennsport your first project with Porsche, or did
No.
Okay.
Well, I did real general illustration for a long time, and I was working mostly for the National Park Service and National Geographic, and it was pretty demanding. And at some point, I just said to myself, I'm going to combine my hobbies and my interest in sort of vintage poster art together. And I met a guy who took me to the vintage races, and I said, this world needs this. And I did a few sample posters and showed them around. And around 1987, started doing work for an auction company in L.A. that was doing vintage sports car auctions. So they were really my first car posters. And, he was doing 3 or 4 big auctions a year. It was Rick Cole auctions. And he sort of invented the Monterey sports race car auctions. He just...
I wonder if it was your artwork I remember seeing in DuPont Registry.
Probably.
I would see ads for Rick Cole. And
It was
always art.
That's why it was so good for me. We did a poster early on, but, he used the artwork for all these full-page magazine ads, inside cover, back cover, stuff. He's all over here in England, and had my name big on it, and that's what started. That's how it started, and then I kept looking for wanted to do more all the time, and showed my stuff to racetracks, and eventually.
So was it late 80s that you decided to step away from the advertising agency? Or?
Yeah, well, I didn't stay at the agency long. I just freelanced.
Okay.
So for about 15, 16 years, it was a long period.
Wow.
I freelanced, and mainly doing these big historical paintings. So they would be for the National Park Service exhibit department.
Wow.
And then I always wanted to have something in National Geographic. That was real prestigious. So I went to them and showed them my work, and they gave me a book project to do. So I did a book. This has nothing to do with cars. Pre-Columbian Pyramid Cities of North America.
Okay.
I saw that on Netflix.
So I did. It was a big project. It was 4 really big paintings, and it wore me down.
Yeah.
It wore me down, and that's when I decided I want to do something with my car hobby and my interest in vintage posters. Ever since art school, I was just always real interested in vintage posters, and I had an art school friend who became a vintage poster dealer, and I would just go visit him and look at all this stuff. And
so what type of vintage posters inspired you?
Well, travel posters,
okay.
and racing posters. So of course the classic vintage racing posters are the Geo Ham posters, which were the Monte Carlo, in the late 20s, early 30s.
And were those mostly watercolor type?
I think they were gouache paintings.
Okay.
But back then, when you made posters, it's pretty interesting. The artist painted it, and the printer sort of repainted it.
Oh.
And all the plates would have to be made by hand. So it was just before any of the modern poster techniques. And the other kind of posters I got real interested in were railroad posters, English railroad posters, which were mainly posters about destinations. And so all the British cities and villages and stuff like that. And I started buying a few of them. And I was just real influenced by the painting style. When you look at posters, there's hundreds of artists who did them, and ones I kind of focused in on, had a certain painting style I liked.
Now, your series that I'm most familiar with, obviously, is the Rennsport series. They all sort of have like a tilt and a sense of speed. And you look at some of the vintage posters that a lot of them have that as well.
Yeah.
So when did you decide that was your style?
Well, even when I was painting, posters for the auctions or car shows, I wasn't interested in painting parked cars.
Yeah.
I used to kid about, God, these cars look so stupid on grass. These aren't,
Yeah.
So I just always, I always said I don't paint no parked cars, and motion was, what I was trying to convey, and there had my techniques. I wanted to show posters like cars from down low with light coming from underneath them, and wheels that were hardly touching the road, and another, on the other side of the car, the wheels pushed way up into the fender wells, and that was.
So after your meeting your goal of being in National Geographics and now deciding to focus on cars, what came next?
Well, I just looked for good clients. I started working for SVRA, and they used to do a Bahama race early. It was always the season opener was a race in the Bahamas, and did 3 or 4 years of Bahama Vintage Grand Prix, and that started around 1967. I mean, not 67, 1987. 1987, and I got work from Michelin, which was really good, and they were doing achievement posters. So after the race, we did a poster of their car.
And Michelin has a
result.
Nice long history of beautiful art.
Yeah,
And probably your style too.
Well, some of it, there's lots of styles, and there are a lot of good automotive illustrators who.
So for those that are maybe considering becoming an automotive artist, like, was the landscape back then difficult for you to land these jobs, or?
Well, there was probably there was more work then than there is now, because in the years that I did posters, photography and computers just took over, and a lot of people, clients, potential clients, they just go the photography route these days.
And did you, I guess, embrace the digital world? Like, has it helped you in your art?
At first, I was real resistant to it. My wife's a graphic designer, and she latched right.
I was about to say she probably adopted it immediately.
Right. She just got it all rolling, and I'm just in the other room painting, cars with paintbrushes and wet paint, and you guys are talking about painting rooms, and you forgot to take into consideration how much paint you're going to get on your clothes.
Oh yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Remember that.
Oh yeah.
So I just wanted to paint, and I just persisted painting, and in the end, you take a photograph of the painting and you put it in the computer and you do the production, with that. But when I started, I was even hand painting the lettering.
Wow.
And
So do the ideas come to you and you're sketching on something small, like 8.5 by 11, and then you make it, or do you go big?
No, I start out with like little postage stamp things.
Really?
Yeah, because you want to end up with a big bold, statement. So I think it's nice to start little, little and loose. I mean, I don't show anybody the postage stamp size things, but when I do,
I want to see it. I think that's cool because I've only seen it as postage
I didn't
size.
send you any slides of that.
Oh.
And then, by the time I start showing stuff to clients, I usually show them a variety of compositions. And the first stage, I just show them these little black and white things that are, done in pencil or Pentel, and if I were actually sending them to them, which you don't do anymore. You send them an email, with it in there. But they're just on tracing paper, and I do a montage of cars, and I put each car is on a separate little piece of tracing paper, and I'm like moving things around, and making adjustments and stuff like that.
But I guess like for Rennsport posters, they're telling you what cars they want, or
because I've done 6 of them now, and I've worked for a lot of different people at Porsche, and it's different. I mean, when it started, it was Bob Carlson, the originator.
So the first one you did was Rennsport 2, and that would have been, was that the 3907s?
Yeah, 3907s, and he talked about, and Bob Carlson said, we want to focus in on that famous victory.
At Daytona.
And I started looking for reference stuff, and saw how in the end they were so far ahead at the end of the race. They just cruised over the line in formation, probably 30 miles an hour. So all the cameras could click at them. So he definitely picked that one.
I think we'd be remiss if Manny, you didn't give a little history on Bob Carlson and Rennsport.
Well, he's the father of Rennsport. I just wrote an article, which by the time you hear this, you should have read it, or it's at least on PCA.org, about the history of the posters and a short history of Rennsport, because they go together. But yeah, Bob Carlson is the father of Rennsport. It was his idea to do a gathering of Porsche race cars. I don't think Bob would have ever dreamed that it would have gotten as big as it is now, considering what it started out as. It's a small gathering. He was the PR guy, head of PR for Porsche Cars North America, very well liked, and unfortunately passed.
He had retired from racing, so I mean, he had a lot of real first-hand friends.
Yeah, everyone knew Bob.
He
was a very affable person, but Rennsport owes its existence to Bob Carlson.
Absolutely. And so, how did you get connected to do the second poster?
Second poster was for Bob as well, and if you flash it in front of me,
The second poster would have been at Daytona as well.
Yeah. I think all the conversation really was, let's pick a 917 and let's pick a what's the other 30?
962.
962.
And we sort of consider what cars are the real icons of the era, and certainly Porsche colors on the 917. And
it's interesting being privy to the meetings this time around, all the meetings on our calls. You hear the conversations. So the second poster has the 962. That's the number 14. It's the Lowenbrow, the Al Holbert car, very iconic, but it has no Lowenbrow on it. And you don't notice it at first, but then you realize something's missing, and it's the Lowenbrow on the front. And much like Sunoco's missing on the car for this year, it's unless they can get permission, or maybe because of alcohol they didn't want to use it. For some reason or another, they erased. I'm not going to say history, but they erased the logo.
Well, I had it painted on there for a while.
So you get a big eraser, just erase that, or just paint over.
Takes a lot of extra coats of a color to really make it disappear.
Yeah. So does that bother you as an artist when they're asking you to do something and then they set sort of guardrails and that might not artistically be something good? You make it work.
I can adjust to it.
You make it work.
I try. I mean, I just begged and begged. Yeah. Put Sunoco on this time.
I know.
And I said, and every time we had a email back and forth, I'd say, it's still not too late. If you can get permission, it's still not too late.
Once I paint over it, we're done.
No, Sunoco wasn't painted on. Sunoco, I had it on in pencil, but I never painted that on.
So, what other works have you done aside from
Rennsport? My first Porsche work was not the Rennsport reunion poster, but it was Christophorus.
Yeah.
And I think in the year 2000, I did 2 Christophorus. In the end, I think next year or so I did 3 Christophorus articles. And the first one was I went to Amelia Island with Hurley Haywood. And did not really do my poster painting style. I did a pen and ink style that I had used for magazine illustration, and pen and ink and watercolor. And so that was Christophorus. And then I did an article for Christophorus about the Hershey Flea Market. And the third one was a real interesting one. I went to Lake George to a classic wooden boat show.
Interesting.
I'm
thinking Chris Craft.
Yeah, well, Chris Craft. Hacker is another famous brand. And these
Not
were
my
the
world.
speedboats of the 20s and 30s.
Okay.
And they'd have a cockpit in the front, and then the engines, and then another cockpit in the back, and windshields on both, and that kind of stuff. And it was just a real fascinating revelation to go to a boat show and see all these beautiful boats, as perfect as any of the Pebble Beach cars, but they're all in the water bobbing, and they're not bobbing together,
Right.
Tied up at a pier, and then at the end of the show,
watch the table.
At the end of the show, everyone goes back to their boathouses on the edge of the lake. So the Christophorus stuff, I wrote the articles as well as illustrated them.
Oh, okay.
And they got edited, they got fixed up, but they were my
Do you
thoughts on the events.
Do you do that often? Do you write?
I haven't done it lately at all.
Okay.
That was Christophorus was about the end.
Now, how about like personal commissions? Do you do that, or only?
I do not do many personal commissions. I liked working for big companies.
Okay.
And racetracks, which I don't know if you call them really big companies, but the Michelin and the Porsche, and I did work for Mazda, a little bit for Chrysler. Different.
Did you ever get to do motorcycle stuff?
No. Well, I do motorcycle stuff for a totally different kind of thing. I have a client who runs motorcycle tours in the Alps.
Oh, that's cool.
And around 1995, I just booked a tour, and me and my wife took this motorcycle tour in the Alps and all the classic roads and the roads from the old rally films and
Nice
stuff like that. And then a year or two later, I called. I said I want to take another trip, and I was going to call you. He said, I want you to help me with my advertising. So I did a lot of print advertising. It was really before he was on the internet. So he was doing a lot of nice print brochures, and so a lot of BMW motorcycles.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And then I just, I kept my relationship with him right up, I guess I still have it,
Yeah.
I last went on, I went on a lot of his tours. And,
That's not a bad relationship to have.
well, that's my break from the car world, is
Yeah.
to go do a motorcycle thing.
So how soon after Porsche announces Rennsport do they contact you?
It's been different. This time it was a little closer. It was about 6 months. I've worked on, I think, over a year ahead of time.
I think this year is the first year they're going to have 3 posters.
Right.
They told us. You're going to have the main poster, and then there's 2 other ones, which I think I've seen one of. Maybe I have seen both the other ones. They are completely different than yours. One, I think, features I think it's a Taycan overlooking maybe Monterey Bay.
I haven't seen it.
The Lonesome Pine.
Maybe that's it. Yeah. And a totally different style. And that was the phone call we were on, where they never mentioned the 911, and we were like,
Yeah.
it's the 60th anniversary of the
Yeah.
911. So the Porsche lets you know
6 months to a year.
Well, it
how much time
it
do you
depends
need?
how much it depends who's running the show there, how much they're going to want me to do, And of course, the more they want me to do, the earlier we start. This time I thought was kind of like short on lead time, but we got rolling real fast and went right to it. And this time, they told me pretty much which cars to paint. They wanted the new prototype car, and they wanted the Can-Am car, and the car I got to really choose was the 550.
Why'd you choose that?
I'm real fascinated by the Career Pan America race, and I had done another article. That's an article I forgot for Christophorus about the history of the first mid-engine, those 550s, and for instance, when that car raced in the Carrera Pan America, it did not have the 4-cam engine.
Right.
It was this push rod. It was
methanol fuel,
yeah,
I think.
Yeah, so it was just at the beginning of Porsche getting into racing.
It was actually a coupe. They weren't spiders. The coupe could be taken off.
Right. So
it was a hardtop car.
The Carrera wasn't the first race. There was a Nürburgring race, and the Nürburgring race didn't have the top on it.
And I think the drivers, it felt very claustrophobic.
Yeah.
Kept the rain out, but felt very claustrophobic because the car's tiny to begin with, and then you suddenly have a top on top of you, and your head's almost hitting the roof. It becomes very claustrophobic. But that was a pretty iconic car.
And it was discovered in a warehouse in Mexico, not that long ago. I think it had been lost for a long time, and the other identical car is still lost, I think.
Because I think the car now sits at Revs Institute.
Yeah. Collier did not discover. Somebody else discovered the car in the warehouse, and before the restoration was started, it changed hands into Collier, and they did
they had to manufacture a roof for it because obviously when they found it didn't have a roof anymore.
Was gone.
They had to manufacture pretty much everything. When it was found, it had a fiberglass front on it, and it was a big project. There's a great art. The article in Christophorus is pretty good. He goes into the whole.
I remember either they debuted it or the year they finished it. It was a big deal because they brought it to the Hershey Parade, the 50th, and that was a big news. That I thought was when they were debuting the restoration. It was a really big deal that this car was going to be showing, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't appreciate the history because they don't know, and they just lump all the spiders together. But this one's pretty significant, being number one.
Yeah. So back to the paintings for Rennsport. How large is the original?
The originals
that you're
are
painting?
24 by 36, which is the same size they're printed.
Oh, okay.
And you don't want to. I don't want to paint any smaller because.
And where does it go? Because I'm sure you take a beautiful photo of it, and then it becomes a poster. Where does the original go?
The originals are hanging in my studio.
Really?
Yeah.
You have all the originals?
I have all but this last one. This last one they did buy.
Oh, really?
But in all past years.
What if they know they could buy the other
I was
ones?
about to say.
They can buy them, anybody.
So you have all the originals except for the most recent one?
Yes.
Huh. Okay, so here's my other question as I was wondering. So 2 through 7 is you.
Yes.
1 wasn't you.
All right.
But if I put all my posters together, I really would like a 1 that looks like 2 through 7. Can you do? Can you do? Would you ever do? Would you ever do a 1 just so that we can have a set that all looks alike?
I don't know.
No, too much.
I don't think that would be legit. But
Yeah. Just because it's I don't have one. Do you have? You went to the first Rennsport?
No, it's
you didn't go.
No. And the thing was, it was advertised, but it seemed like just like another vintage race weekend, and there was a lot of vintage race weekends. So I remember being this close to Lime Rock, no one really spoke about it as anything you have to go to because Rennsport. Because prior to that, in '98, was the big Monterey Historics Steve Earle put on, and then on the East Coast it was the 50/50, which was Watkins Glen 50th anniversary Porsche's 50th, and that was in my eyes like the first Rennsport because it was identical to Rennsport as far as being only Porsche, factory brought over all these cars. I remember pulling into the garages for tech because I was racing my C2, and it looked like a dream because there was all these aluminum cars and fiberglass, all from the museum and collectors. So when Rennsport happened, there was no anniversary year really per se. So there was not even on my radar until afterwards. You started reading articles and hearing about it, but nothing that
Nothing like today, where you know what the.
it was
what
sort of like
Rennsport
when
means.
Ferrari did something down at Daytona. We heard about it afterwards that they were running F1 cars at Daytona, and they had all these cars. And I thought, oh my God, had I known about this, I would have made the trip to see all these cars run at Daytona. But prior to that, there was very little advertising that would have gotten people's attention.
Well, let's give credit for the first poster for Rennsport 1 to Art Eastman.
Yes, he was a graphic artist. I think.
Yeah, well, he was a photographer. He was the editor of What was the magazine?
Vintage Motorsports.
Vintage Motorsport, right. There were two magazines back there, Victory Lane and Vintage Motorsport. And Vintage Motorsport was the glossy, and he did everything. He designed the magazine, he edited it, he was a good car photographer. And he was probably, right in there at the very beginning of the planning.
And the Redmonds, Intercontinental Events, Brian Redmond, his son, James, put it on, and they put the first three on for Porsche.
So for those of you that don't have or maybe missing a Dennis Simon poster from your Rennsport set, as well as some other posters, you can head over to centuryofspeed.com, and you still have some available.
Yes.
And we have to also be careful that not all posters that are offered are actually genuine. Surprise, surprise.
And he educated me because I said, I see them on eBay and they're like $10, and I know these are worth more than that. I mean, how can they? And then he explained that they're
you got to read the ad and ask you what size do you want it. And,
they're counterfeit.
They're counterfeit.
So it's all digital printing, and you got to chase after everybody.
And I'm sure the paper quality isn't like an original. Luckily, I've gotten all mine by going to the events, and I can tell you that no matter how many they print,
they'll never be
they
enough.
will sell out. And I remember, I think it was Rennsport 4. They sold out on the first day before lunch, and people were so mad that because they had waited to the end of the day to buy it, so they wouldn't have to carry it around, and they were gone.
Yeah, that's your insider tip when you head to Rennsport Reunion 7 is not only to buy your poster early, but if you're smart, because I'm not sure that they come in tubes.
I'm not sure. Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't.
So you might want to
worth the money to buy an extra.
I was about to say, go to Staples or not Home Depot, Office Depot, and just throw a tube in your luggage, so that way when you buy it,
when you get to town, just buy one. Like
you
stopped at Staples and picked up a tube.
Because the worst is you buy one and somehow you crease it.
Yes, you're holding it all day. There's no way you're not going to.
Yeah.
Well, you end up rolling it and unrolling it for every single autograph.
Exactly. So you want to bring something to protect it.
But yeah, evidently, you got to be very careful if you're buying these off eBay, that you're not buying, like Dennis said, a digital reprint. Because so the one Dennis sells are artist proofs. You know what an artist proof is?
So that means they're numbered?
Yeah, they're not numbered, but when you print the poster, you go to the printing factory and you get to adjust the press.
Oh.
And you adjust the press to match the painting.
Mm-hmm.
And you're there, and there some awful things get spit at the end of the press sometimes in the beginning, but it gets tuned in, and at some point I declare that I'm happy with the color.
Yeah.
And they take the first couple hundred off the press, and they put them aside, and I get them. So that's how come I have a supply of
so those
really
are
hard to get posters.
The first run of the approved.
Right.
Posters.
So
Cool.
when I sell them, I mark them artist proof,
Mm-hmm.
and I sign my name.
Mm.
And through the years, a couple of them, there's only a few left, but there are at least a few of all of them, and in some cases,
There you go.
That's why one of my prized possessions now is they misspelled Porsche on one of the posters. Not Rennsport, but a poster.
His heart just dropped. Not one of yours.
No, this is that parade.
Yeah.
I've had it happen. It wasn't the client's name, but painting all those decals on the front of the.
Well, this was
yeah.
the funny thing was, so the next day they had the posters, and they said, "Did you get one?" I said, "Oh, I got it yesterday." And they said, "Oh, you got one of the special ones." And I said, "What's so special about it?" And they said, "There was a mistake." I said, "Really?" And it said she went to the back and brought out the one from yesterday. She said, "Can you tell the difference?" So I'm looking. She goes, "Look real close."
Right.
And then I realized they forgot the C, I think, in Porsche.
But we read it the way
Everyone, I showed it to
read
everyone.
Right, yeah.
And
No one
they're
picked it up.
looking at it. They're overthinking. They're looking at, trying to find a trick on there, and so they were in a panic. They had to go.
It's
print
only
these.
the collector who's going to be happy that he got
Yeah,
one.
that-
There's a
I
lot of-
said,
the misprint.
yeah.
it's rare that you see them misspell Porsche. Anyways, so yeah, when you're buying these posters, in my article I put on there, buy from a reputable dealer. And if they say what size, that's a giveaway right away.
yeah.
And if you see for $9.99, you're not getting a deal from someone who doesn't know. You're getting a digitally printed. And if you're fine with that, that's great. But if you want an original, and there's a lot of originals still out there, either you can buy what Dennis has left, or you can get it from a collector or someone who's reputable. That usually the giveaways are if they've been autographed, because that's. Most of them were at the event have some kind of autograph,
Right.
Because Porsche always has autograph sessions during the 3 or 4 days of the event, and that's.
So speaking of the article that you wrote up, I'll probably ask Robert to throw up the newsletters so that you can make sure you sign up for eBreak News to read about articles such as Manny just mentioned. And you can also sign up for Mark Fresh News, our favorite picks of the cars that are available in PCA's Classified, and of course Performance News focusing on the four-door Porsche. Sign up at pca.org. You want to talk about the recent video drops that we did at Mecum?
Yeah, so this is the our trip in Monterey. On our last day, we went to Mecum. We were guests at Mecum, and we got to. We've been there several times, and as I told the guys from Mecum, this is also for me because there's many Saturday mornings, especially in the wintertime. I just sit there and just veg in front of the TV watching these auctions go live, and being able to sit in the audience and watch them go live is even. All I needed was some food and some drink next to me, and I would have been in heaven. I could have stayed there all day watching these auctions, these cars go by in the auction. The only thing I told them I was missing was the commentators telling me about the car and what's rare about it, especially the muscle cars, because I'm not that familiar with them, but I love learning about them. So we did a video with highlighting the Porsches that were there, which there were several. Mecum's definitely making a push to get into Porsche and Ferrari. So you saw a lot of those two marks being auctioned off. And you get to interview the CEO of Mecum, and of course Lee Giannone, who's the CFO or
He is,
finance.
I think he's the director of the financial services.
Yeah, but Lee's a longtime PCA member, and up until recently he was racing the 962 Coca-Cola car. But we found that he just couldn't scratch the itch, and he bought a 996 Cup car for Rennsport. So we'll see Lee at Rennsport racing the Cup car. So, anyways, it's about a 19-minute video. It's got some
It's a lot of fun.
good stuff in it.
We
The
saw
one
some
thing
cool
I didn't
cars.
catch, I saw it in person. I didn't realize Damon or Bogdan caught it on camera. Was the guy from Mecum who moves the cars, and they have several, a lot of guys that are moving the cars and driving them up on stage. He was putting the key in on the right side of the 911, looking for an ignition.
For a good
And
while.
he actually stuck it in the one I saw. He stuck it in the temperature sensor, and I actually leaned in and said, "No." I said, "To the left of the steering wheel, not."
So yeah, at Mecum, the keys are typically zip tied to the column of the steering wheel, and I don't know if I think they're volunteers or maybe they're staffers, but they've got to drive thousands of cars
lot of
across.
cars.
So they caught this gentleman not exactly sure where to put the
I'm always
key in.
amazed at the really old cars where you have ignition timing. You got to adjust how, because I would be stuck.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But what was cool is, we do all watch it on TV, and it's fun to learn about the different models. But what you don't necessarily capture on TV is the energy in the room and like how they amp up the audience. I mean, you're having a good time, and even, you want to get a car at a good price, let's say, but I think you're kind of in the mood. Even if you paid a little bit over, you're still okay with it because you're having a great time.
I compare like the RM auction, like eating at a fine French restaurant.
Yeah.
And Meekum's more like eating at a really fun wing place.
Yeah.
It's a lot more energy. People are really upbeat, and if you listen to that auctioneer, and he speaks so fast, and things move so fast that when you go to R&M, you're like, "Where's the fast forward button?" Because this is going way too slow.
Yeah, and they go through so many cars. I think at Monterey they were going through 500, 600 cars.
Literally, if you go to the bathroom, you could miss 4 or 5 cars easy.
easy.
Yeah.
We had a little contest, Manny and myself, at the beginning. There was a 917 go-kart, and we thought we would see who would get closest to the hammer price.
Well, I was really scared because I knew nothing about this go-kart. I knew it wasn't a factory build, but I really knew
was
nothing.
Beautiful.
And I took a guess. I came
You came
somewhat
close. Yeah, you said 25 grand. I said 20, and it hammered down at like 32, I think.
I thought if this thing starts at 100,000, I'm going to feel really stupid.
So, anyways, let's get into the news. We've got official word of where Mr. Kel Gruner ended up.
Yeah, the rumors were true. It was Rivian. Supposedly Rivian's building a factory in Atlanta. That's the other rumor I've heard. Maybe it is true. So I would imagine staying in Atlanta. He's the president and COO, I think now.
Yeah.
Of Rivian.
They say CCO.
CCO, that's right. Mm-hmm. And so he's. They say it's perfect for him. He's big on technology in the future, and
they definitely
wish him
picked a good egg from Porsche, and we wish him the best of luck.
Now the question is, who becomes this PCA?
I know.
And the rumors now is somebody from the M division from BMW.
Really?
Who used to work for PCA at Porsche for a long time. They said he has more Porsche experience than BMW experience. So that wouldn't be a bad thing, but I don't know when they'll announce it, before or after Rennsport, because normally the CEO is the one who taps the keg.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Could you imagine coming in and your first gig on the job is going to Rennsport?
Not a bad introduction.
Not a bad
Get
introduction.
to meet a lot of people.
Yeah. Next, let's see. Next news item. Oh, cool coffee table book.
One that I want really bad.
It's beautiful.
The site was sold out, or somebody on the Chesapeake region chat found another site that had it for sale called Artifacts. It looks very cool. It has it looks like all the cool stuff from the museum they took photos of, and
so is it sold out?
Well, so on the site that the press release came out, of course I went right away to see if I can order one, and it said this item no longer available.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that they bring some to Rennsport.
Oh.
So that's
something else we got.
That Thursday morning, I'm going to
we have to hunt for.
Head over to Porsche to see, or maybe before that, and ask them if they have any of these books. So I can't imagine they're not going to have at least some to display or show off. And I think it's like $300 maybe.
Oh, that's not bad. For a beautiful, I mean, if those of you that aren't on YouTube, it's a beautiful book with all sorts of
225 pounds. What's that? That's close to 300, right?
Yeah.
Next, I think Robert's trying to buy one.
Go to shopping cart. He's literally trying to buy it right now. Proceed to checkout. Look.
All right, Robert, hold on to that. Let's see what the. Well, I don't want to pay VAT, but we'll see what shipping is.
So a few years ago, we decided to collect all of the initiatives that many of our PCA regions are doing in and around their community, called Members Making a Difference. And this next news item has to do with the club delivering some goods.
But this was actually, I didn't get this off our Members Making a Difference. This was on news. This came on Google News.
Came through Google News?
Came on through Google News, yeah. That's why I highlighted it. Yeah, it was British Columbia region, I believe.
So they were doing a program and bringing school supplies, right? School supplies to the kids that needed it.
And that's, I mean, obviously every EC selects the winners for the charity award differently. But when I was on the EC, we always looked at BC Interior, that was the region. How they make the Porsche Club look to the public.
Yeah.
It's easy to write a check and be kind of like anonymous, but putting a face to the brand is always special. And what these folks did was just up that alley. You know, they put a face to what Porsche owners are.
We do that too in the Chesapeake region. So we do backpacks, right?
Yes, every Christmas.
Every Christmas we do
stuff with
backpacks.
backpacks. Yeah.
Yeah. So lots of
But that was
lots of
cool
good-
seeing.
So you picked that up from the news.
BCI, no, Coach showed up on
Oh,
Google
cool.
News. I'm like, hey, it's pretty cool. That's we always wish that our stuff makes it to Google News.
So speaking of making it on news, the last one you put on here was talking about Volkswagen and share price on the news
And valuation.
and valuation.
Yeah, and in the article, what's interesting is they bring up, the Oliver Blume, who's doing the double duty CEO as Porsche and Volkswagen, and there was a discussion we were having one of our chats about the fact that he's probably overextended. And I said, then talking to the family, they are very, very happy with Oliver Blume, and they do not want to let him go as Porsche CEO. And of course, the family also owns Volkswagen, so
Yeah.
he's probably going to stay at both places as long as he's doing the good job. But Volkswagen valuation's down a little bit, and that's what the article discusses, and they're tightening their belts.
Yeah,
to,
Dr.
raise
Wolfgang
it.
said something along the lines of there's still room for efficiency.
And if you know, in the article too, they talk about succession, and they'd say Oliver Porsche is the most likely successor to Wolfgang for supervisor, the director of the supervisory board, which is the board that oversees all the family interests and the decision makers. If they don't like a CEO, then your time is pretty much limited.
Wow. So you think there are other family members in the wing?
Well, for different positions, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you see, I think it's cool that Wolfgang's son, Ferdy, is getting so involved now in organizing ice racing.
Ice racing,
and,
yeah.
and different events. And it's Hans Peter's son is getting more involved, too. So, yeah, you're definitely going to... It's hard because they're all named Ferdinand. So you got to go by their middle name to differentiate them. Yeah, I mean, it's great that the next generation is getting more involved. And, at parade, it's always a thrill to have a family member come.
Absolutely.
So hopefully we'll see Dr. Wolfgang at Rennsport.
Yeah.
I think Ferdy's supposed to come too.
Yeah, we saw Mark Porsche at Porsche Parade.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he had a great time. Yeah,
Yeah.
Took him to In and Out at midnight.
Official meetings.
That's
All right, so let's see events. Of course, Rennsport. Are you still accepting volunteers?
Believe it or not, they have reached their limit of 600 volunteers.
Really? Wow.
600 volunteers. That's how much it takes to put on Rennsport, just the part of the parking and the parade laps. But yeah, 600 PCA volunteers, which really shouldn't be surprising because PCA people are phenomenal volunteers. But they all get a poster, Dennis, a poster in a tube, and they get a volunteer T-shirt. So it's a pretty good deal for a 3-hour. Basically, you're sitting in the parking lot talking to your friends, and as people come to park, you're directing them where to park. But it's not really a hard gig to do. So yeah, I talked to Sharon Nidell, and she said, pull the ad from e-brake because we reached our maximum.
That's awesome.
So that's very awesome.
Thank you to all of you that raised your hand, so to speak, to volunteer. Because without PCA's volunteers, a lot of things wouldn't work, including our own events, let alone Rennsport.
Yep.
So thank you very much for that. Parade laps, are they any of those still available?
Still Thursday and Sunday. So
Okay.
we're past
The
the
bookends.
halfway mark on them, so they'll probably be sold out before the event starts. But you do need a corral ticket to be able to a corral ticket and a Porsche, and obviously a driver's license and proof of insurance. That's what the track requires. But yep, bright and early 7:30. No one's going to delay us except for weather, which is fog in Laguna, not rain. Then I saw on the schedule right after us is the Carrera GT 918 R Group parade lap. So
Oh, interesting.
yeah, they're in the same boat as we are, hoping that the weather doesn't slow them down.
Wow. Okay. Let's see. Registration opens September 13th for Unstock.
Unstock. We're going to HRE, which is a little bit north of San Diego,
Yep.
just outside of San Diego. And if you've never been to HRE and you're in LA, it's worth the trip down.
Absolutely.
I'm so happy that they do manufacturing in the U.S. When we went there, I thought we were just going to go to a showroom, but I was greeted with an entire factory of where they make these wheels, and they're all automotive enthusiasts. They will talk your head off about wheels and cars, and it's going to be a great time.
Yeah, we're going to be in a normally a very quiet industrial park on a Sunday, and we'll have some cars that we parked inside as well, the manufacturing area.
20 of our favorite
Some
cars
highlights.
will park inside, and
And they'll have some of the machines running to show people how it's all made.
yeah, all they need to do is one set of wheels, and they pay for the whole event.
Exactly. All right, let's see. Anything else before we sign off, Manny?
No, I would say get your Rennsport posters. If you're missing any, get them now, because as we get closer to Rennsport, people are going to start realizing it and start buying these posters. And if you're going to Rennsport, bring Sharpies with you, silver and black.
Silver and black.
Yep.
Smart.
I'm going to Rennsport. I'll be all over the place. Anybody who has a poster, I'll have a little ticket on that says I'm the poster artist.
I'm the poster guy.
And I'll have my own Sharpies if they don't have their Sharpies.
Hopefully, by the time you listen to this, I'm hoping that the Rennsport app will be available to download. And from there, I'm told that you can download the schedule, but to get updates. And hopefully in those updates, they'll update who's going to be in the autograph sessions, because I know Dennis is going to be scheduled for several autograph sessions. And we're going to be doing autograph sessions twice a day at the PCA Porsche Platz tent. But they're only 1 hour sessions, so you got to get there early, get in line, because when that hour is over, we got to get all the legends out of the tent, because we have another.
And if I'm not
session
mistaken,
afterwards.
there's only so many people we can get through the autograph line, too.
Exactly. They're limiting
So-
it to one thing per person, but it is people stop and they want to talk to you, Dennis, and this, that, and the other, and they're trying to move things along
Yeah.
so everyone gets their autograph on the
So key is to be early.
early, and don't be like we did at the autograph session, the sports car together, and we had Jeff Gordon. And somebody literally brought, it looked like half a car.
They did.
He had doors, the front bumper, rear bumper. I think Jeff even joked that he goes, I found my missing car.
That's awesome.
I hopefully you don't bring car parts that big
Yeah.
to the autograph session, but a poster is a memorable item to have autographed. Just take pictures of people's names as they're signing, because you will not remember.
Exactly. Good tip. Well, Dennis, thank you so much for joining us. It's great seeing you around locally. Great having you so close to PCA National Headquarters. For those listening, thank you for joining us. If you aren't currently a PCA member and own a Porsche, what are you waiting for? Grab that VIN, head over to pca.org, and we'll set you up with a membership. For those of you looking to buy a Porsche, we have the test drive program. You can join there, and we'll give you all the access to the resources to find your dream car. Remember to follow our podcast Instagram page, behind the scenes photos, Porsche Club Insider, all one word. And please give us a like, thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. I think we're getting very close to 80,000 subscribers on YouTube, and would love it. We're not too far away from 100,000. So with that, remember to, again, subscribe to our newsletters. They're free. And until next time, we'll stay safe, and we'll catch you down the road.